All new, Friday night at 7 on Arizona PBS.
Arizona PBS programming is brought to you in part by the underwriting support of local businesses. Arizona PBS has marketing opportunities to connect your business with our diverse and highly targeted audiences that enjoy the quality programs that are on Arizona PBS. To learn more about how you can support Arizona PBS and grow your business by reaching the customers you want, call 602-496-8669 or visit azpbs.org/underwriting.
Next time on Shakespeare and Hathaway.
I want into the business.
I need a partner like I need a hole in the head.
The Mystery Series.
We could be looking at a professional hit.
With hairdressing scissors.
Featuring the unlikely team of Shakespeare and Hathaway.
Tonight at 9 on Arizona PBS.
Next time on Doc Martin.
Today is our day for glory.
Port Wynne hasn't won the annual boat race in years.
We've got something they haven't. Please don't say heart.
Louisa has made a big decision.
I've got something to tell you. You believe in Martin? No.
And when Martin faints,
Has your blood phobia got worse?
it could end up destroying his career.
The way you've treated me is disgraceful.
Why don't you want you struck off?
Doc Martin.
Saturday night at 7 on Arizona PBS.
On Masterpiece.
Didn't know there was to be a family reunion.
Julia, you do tell me everything, don't you?
Everything that's useful, yes.
I need to know why you're involved and I need to know what you want.
I need to be sure that you can stick to the story.
Roadkill on Masterpiece.
All new, Sunday night at 8 on Arizona PBS. Explore new ideas and new worlds here on Arizona PBS, a community service of Arizona State University.
Utilities don't like competition. They own your electricity. It's theirs.
This is a big threat.
They want to stop competition from solar.
I think that's just the way it has been.
That's the worst explanation.
Monday night at 9 on Arizona PBS.
Over this past year, a team of filmmakers have been documenting the hopes and fears of a country at odds. From the pandemic to race to politics, American Voices, a nation in turmoil.
Tuesday night at 9 on Arizona PBS. Support for Arizona PBS comes from viewers like you and from...
I'm Susan Linkus of the Linkus Group, a fee-based registered investment advisor specializing in financial planning, investment management, insurance strategies, and more. LinkusGroup.com, investing for life.
Coming up on Cronkite News, the symptoms are similar, how new technology is being used to tell the difference between COVID and influenza.
The casualties of COVID-19 have not gone unnoticed. Tonight, we take a look at a memorial dedicated to those who have passed away from the disease.
And on Break It Down, why don't we see more Native Americans in pop culture?
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Rosara Wordsworth.
And I'm Tyler Mannion. Thank you for joining us.
Cases of COVID-19 in Arizona continue to climb. To date, the Arizona Department of Health Services has reported more than 260,000 cases of COVID-19 and more than 6,000 deaths from the virus. Arizona's most populated county, Maricopa County, has experienced the most cases of COVID-19 at more than 170,000. Greenlee County has the least amount of infections with 122 reported cases. As COVID cases continue to impact the lives of Arizonans, the Navajo Nation has been hit especially hard. The Navajo Department of Health has reported over 12,000 positive cases of COVID-19 and almost 600 deaths. Yesterday, the department warned residents of uncontrolled spread in 34 communities on the Navajo Nation. There will be another 56-hour weekend curfew starting tomorrow night.
The numbers of COVID cases nationally can be staggering. More than 10.4 million cases and 242,000 deaths so far in the U.S. That's according to Johns Hopkins University. One artist who worried that such large numbers could be numbing has come up with an unusual response, as Maitali Guppy reports from our Washington bureau.
Almost 250,000 people could not vote for a better America on this past Tuesday. That made me sad.
It's a sea of white, as almost 250,000 flags line a grass field, each flag representing an American who died from COVID-19.
To help people understand the number, to make sense of it, so that we would not just release it and say it is what it is, but rather we would be inspired to take good care of each other.
This is Suzanne Furstenberg, the artist who created the In America exhibit. She plants the flags and updates a board with the death toll in the country daily.
The hardest part of my day is when we change the numbers.
For Furstenberg, the living are just as important to the process of honoring.
I have created this art, but really it's the people who come, it's the people who add names, it's the people who simply acknowledge the pain of others that really give value and life to this space.
People like the Sneeds, a retired couple from Virginia who visited the art installation at the D.C. Armory grounds recently.
To see all these flags representing some family's pain it's moving. It's very moving.
Actually,
and I'm so thankful to Suzanne.
I've had high school and college friends who have died from COVID. So yeah, it's really sad to see what's happened.
Out of tens of thousands of flags at this installation, this section right here has over 6,000. That's how many Arizonans have died of COVID-19.
It tears my heart up to see this because of what it represents and because of the fact that it didn't have to be this way.
The installation was supposed to be here for just 3 weeks, but DC Mayor Muriel Bowser granted an extension until November 30th.
It gives more people a chance to participate in the creation of the art, and it gives us more time to figure out how next to honor all the people who will continue to lose.
If people can't visit the exhibit in person, there is a live stream of the installation.
It's really moving. Anyone who has the opportunity to come and see this ought to.
It's amazing, and it's very disturbing when you actually come here and you see the flags and realize each flag represents a person who's died.
Visitors like the Sneeds wish that being able to put something like a death toll in visual perspective would lead to.
And that the American people will start realizing that it's real, it's not anything fake, and that what people can do to help reduce the numbers.
Yes, wear a mask. It's not hard, people.
Furstenberg hopes the exhibit will.
I think that art such as this can make us stop a minute and think of each other. So to me, that's the value of it.
In Washington, Maitali Guppy, Cronkite News.
The display is called In America, How Could This Happen? If you want to take a look at the live stream for the display, you can find it at SuzanneFurstenberg.com or on our website at cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
After more than 100 days on a ventilator due to COVID-19, a New Mexico man is recovering here in Phoenix from a double lung transplant. Faith Abercrombie has his story.
Arthur Sanchez had no major pre-existing conditions before contracting COVID-19. However, the disease led him to months spent in different hospitals and the need of an organ donor. This morning, I spoke to him and the team of medical personnel that gave Sanchez a second chance of life.
I'm so happy. Look, it can start for such a long time.
Yes, really good.
For some people, COVID-19 comes with symptoms and a quarantine period.
I was one of those people that was kind of shying off the COVID thing, saying it's nothing big, like any other virus, it's going to go away.
But for 52-year-old New Mexico resident Arthur Sanchez, the virus required a trip to Phoenix to undergo a double lung transplant.
I would probably compare it to being underwater too long and not being able to come up for air. It's a scary situation to be in, you take a breath, and typically most people will take a breath and they don't even realize because it's your body's taking care of itself.
Sanchez's life-threatening journey started back in April, after 2 hospitals in New Mexico with a continuation of inflamed and scarred lungs. Doctors decided a new set of lungs was the only way for Sanchez to breathe properly.
Last resort measure of lung transplantation was used to save his life. So finally, Arthur is breathing fresh air after spending 147 days in the hospital, 116 of which were on the ventilator, and over 3 months were on ECMO.
Sanchez battled the lung disease alongside many family members and refers to his transplant as a miracle.
So my sister was in the hospital, I was in the hospital, my brother-in-law was in the hospital. Unfortunately, my brother-in-law, he did not make it. He passed through complications of COVID. His heart just couldn't handle the stress that the virus put on his body. I'm a fighter, and I'm a strong believer in faith. I think I'm a walking miracle.
Sanchez is cleared to return back to his family in New Mexico this weekend. Right now, he is set to have monthly check-ins for a year at Dignity Health St. Joseph's Hospital in Phoenix. In the broadcast center, Faith Abercrombie, Cronkite News.
The symptoms of COVID-19, coughing, fatigue, and headaches can often be mistaken for the flu, but a new test could help tell the difference between the two illnesses. COVID-19 and influenza often get confused since their symptoms are similar. The group that created the test, Roche Diagnostics, claims that reliable testing can help guide treatment decisions and prevent further disease transmission. The test is done with a nasal swab and has emergency approval from the FDA.
Schools across the nation are taking different approaches to COVID-19. Some are opening while others are continuing online learning. The Flagstaff Unified School District has announced that it plans to remain closed for the remainder of 2020. FUSD says the decision was based on the current and projected risk level of spread of COVID-19. The school district says that they will continue to provide weekly COVID and health updates.
Another 709,000 Americans filed first-time claims for unemployment benefits last week. The Labor Department reported those numbers today. There were also nearly 300,000 new pandemic unemployment assistance filings. That program gives benefits to those who aren't eligible for normal state aid, like those who are unemployed or self-employed. If you include the new pandemic unemployment assistance filings, first-time claims stood at 1 million last week, not adjusted for seasonal fluctuations. It comes as the nation's job market recovery slows down. Many people have gone back to work, but millions still aren't employed. Continued jobless claims, which includes people who have filed for benefits for at least 2 weeks in a row, were at 6.8 million last week.
Coming up next on Cronkite News, the start of a court case regarding Arizona's election. The first hearing started today with a bit of a defeat for Trump's campaign.
Also, how high school athletes in Arizona are taking their education to the next level.
This month in Passport, your on-demand library of the best of PBS.
Everyone has secrets. Are you protecting someone?
I have no choice.
You do have a choice. You're looking at him.
That's amazing. We could be standing on top of a T-Rex right now.
Women demanded new space and pushed the boundaries of what being a lady means.
These and other shows are available with Passport. Become a member of this PBS station. Sign in and start streaming today.
Here we go. Lights up. Whoa.
As artists, we conduct our educations in public. You can never know whether it's going to be a success. One just has to risk it.
It's you and the work and the place. It's a very particular relationship.
Here's our lens. Tell us what you think.
Friday night at 9 on Arizona PBS.
As of last night, President-elect Joe Biden's lead stood just shy of 13,000 more votes than President Donald Trump in Arizona. And with more than 24,000 uncounted ballots in Arizona, it remains unlikely for the president to overtake Biden's lead. The Trump campaign has claimed there were numerous overvotes and that election workers did not give voters the chance to correct their ballots. Maricopa County elections officials have said around 165,000 people in Maricopa voted on Election Day, and they've only received 180 overvotes in the presidential ticket. Even if the president were to win Arizona, he'd still be likely to lose the presidency.
This morning, the Trump campaign went before a Maricopa County Superior Court judge to present a case alleging improper vote counting in Maricopa County. Alex Gall has details on the proceedings.
The Trump campaign's lawsuit against Arizona Secretary of State Katie Hobbs, Maricopa County Recorder Adrian Fontes, and others got off to a rough start this morning as the judge granted a motion to toss out much of the Trump campaign's evidence of voter fraud. The evidence in question was gathered through an online submission form set up by the Trump campaign. Their lawyers say they checked the sworn statements against voting records and removed the ones that they deemed false. But Maricopa County Superior Court Judge Daniel Kiley was skeptical of that process for verifying the statements' reliability.
We think they're likely to be true because the name and address of the voters who submitted them match the name and addresses from the county of people who were in a position to see it. Indication from the voter that it's not true or they didn't submit it, right? It's not on the list.
Your process for gathering declarations has yielded sworn statements under oath that your investigation is determined to be false. That doesn't give me any reason to believe that your process is one that generates trustworthy affidavits. It simply generated affidavits that you can't prove are not true. That's not the same as being trustworthy.
Lawyers for the Trump campaign made sure to note that this is not alleging voter fraud, but rather allegations of flaws within the Maricopa County election system. And while they did lose on these affidavits, they are still pressing their case that Maricopa County rejected around 200 ballots. That's a number that can't affect the outcome of this election, but it can affect confidence in the county's voting system. In the broadcast center, Alex Gall, Cronkite News.
Arizona election officials have continued to post additional voting results this week with the President Trump votes picking up. But overall, the president is still trailing behind the president-elect Joe Biden by more than 11,000 votes. Trump received more than 7,000 new votes after Maricopa County released its ballot count on Wednesday night. Biden received a little less than 6,000 new votes, but is maintaining a steady lead over the president. Arizona still has less than 25,000 ballots left to be counted, with a majority of them coming from Pima and Maricopa County.
2 Arizona high school football players have been named as recipients of the 2020 Great American Rivalry Series Scholar Athlete Award. Cronkite News reporter Adam Noel talked with the players and their respective coaches about this national honor.
Although they may consider themselves rivals when they step on the gridiron, one place Hamilton and Chandler High School can come together is in the classroom. The two were the only schools in Arizona to have football players named to this year's Great American Rivalry Series Scholar Athlete list.
The selections have been made. Now the vote.
The GARS Award recognizes student athletes for both their on-the-field and in-the-classroom success. This year's recipients were Hamilton senior James John and Chandler senior Ceci Bada. Each were nominated by their coaches for going above and beyond.
That's the reason he received the award, because he's dependable, trustworthy, responsible, great character, and I've never seen a setback in any of those categories.
In addition to the national recognition, John and Ibarra will both receive a $500 scholarship. And to put it in perspective, the two were among only 144 high school football players selected from across the country. Chandler head coach Rick Garrettson praised Ibarra, a senior offensive lineman, for continuing to put the school in the national scene.
He represents our school well. He represents our program well, and he's just a class kid and a class act, both on and off the football field and in our community.
John, a senior defensive back at Hamilton High School, mentioned it wasn't always easy for him to balance academics and athletics.
It takes a lot of self-discipline and work ethic to get that done. So it's definitely an honor to be nominated for an award that encompasses both of them, because I know how hard it is to really keep my focuses on both of them at the same time.
For Ibarra, the award was a testament to how hard he's worked to bring his grades up after a difficult first couple years of high school.
I struggled a lot my freshman year and part of my sophomore year, and me and my mom sat down and talked, and we really got down what I need to do in the classroom, how I could fix it, and I've just been bringing my grades up ever since, and it's just a huge accomplishment to me, and I'm proud of my grades.
And it doesn't just end there for John and Ibarra. Each has the chance to be voted on from family and friends to the GARS Hall of Fame team. Student athletes who finish in the top 25 will be eligible for an additional scholarship. Adam Noel, Cronkite News.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
The lack of representation in the media leads to more barriers for Native Americans. We break it down next.
Lucas Brown Eyes, thank you so much for joining us. Let's break it down on Native American representation in television. For the last 20 years, we've had some shows that show working class families like Roseanne, George Lopez, Everybody Hates Chris, but there's never been a show about a Native American family. Lucas, can you tell us, in your opinion, why not having a show that features a Native family is a problem?
Yes, I actually sold a Native family comedy pilot in 2017. It was going to be the first Native family on television, but also it was the first Native pilot ever sold to like broadcast television. It was insane how that had never happened before, and it was 2017. For me, it was so important because, well, one, it was my family story, but more than that, it was Native Americans are often left out. We're often erased. We're left out of the conversation, even when we are the most affected by that. You know, poverty rates, life expectancy, all of that, we are affected greatly, yet we're often left out. Native Americans aren't humanized. And that's why I think like a Native family on television is so important, because what is the first thing you learn as a child? You learn family. And it's something that most people, they can relate to at a core level. We need to start that process of humanization. And to be honest, that's just the first step.
To add to that, there have been academic scholars who have written, research articles in journals that say the fact that there are so few Native people on primetime television, it severely limits the way that Native people can picture themselves operating and living in a modern American society. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of Native people in television? I know that there seems to be a theme of portraying Native people in a historic context. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so the history of authentic Native American content, and by that I mean told by Native Americans, is very limited. There's been no television show yet, and as far as movies, we have a few, but not that many. Honestly, we were one of the first on film. It was in the late 1800s. It was a Lakota ghost dance. Thomas Edison filmed us, right? So we were one of the first films ever during, those experimental phases that a film is considered like 4.5 minutes, and it blew everyone's mind. And back then, he actually hired real Native Americans, and he had Native American content. And that 4-minute dance was kind of where the Native American storytelling peaked, I think, for Hollywood. It only got worse or the same since then. Historically, I think everyone can think of, the Westerns. We're portrayed as the villain. Most of the time, they're not even Native American.
Yeah, it's a Native person who, doesn't speak proper English or is wearing traditional, quote unquote, traditional clothing, when in fact there's more than 500 tribes in the country. So I've also seen those, and I almost crack up a little bit because they're kind of comical. And the other example that a lot of people have of Native people is Pocahontas. Could you tell us a little bit about why that movie in particular is not necessarily accurate or a great representation of Native people?
Well, the movie's not accurate because that's not what happened. It's a sad story. She was more of a victim than anything. For me, the main issue is not one movie. It's the industry as a whole. It's society as a whole, constantly leaving us out. So when you have one movie that, let's say, has an inaccurate portrayal of a Native American woman who really existed, that is harmful, yes, and that's harmful to her family. But more so, when there's nothing else, that becomes the roadmap for people's idea of Native Americans, and that's where the main problem is. The whole feathers and leathers stereotype where it's a Native American in a loincloth, super inaccurate always, but also it portrays us as something in the past. And it's this thing that I think many people still kind of believe, that we're no longer here. But the truth is we are still here. There are so many Native American accomplishments that kind of get diminished or erased. You can have 9 movies, and if all of them take place in the 1800s, well, what are you telling people? But if you have 9 movies and one of them takes place in the 1800s, fine, that's historical. People like those movies too. For me, it's about authenticity and lack of content.
And I want to switch gears a little bit. All of this is changing.
Yeah.
We have very recently, NBC announced that it's going to pilot a show called Sovereign. When you heard this news, what was your reaction?
Well, I mean, I went through the whole pilot process, so I've been there. So it's a yay, that's exciting. Also, let's not count it yet. Let's make sure NBC makes this. Let's make sure it goes to series, because many TV shows get pilots. We want a series. We want not only a series, we want many series. We want Native American content. So for me, it's exciting. Now there are 4 projects in various stages of development. So when I heard about the NBC thing, I'm like, great, let's hope it goes to series.
There's already a couple of other shows that are animated, actually, that have made it to series. We have Molly of Denali, yes, which is on PBS Kids, and it's the first animated series about an Alaska Native girl. And I don't know about you, I watch it all the time, and I've heard a lot of Native people really excited about this show. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I have it. It's amazing. So I should add that 5. We have 5. 1 is Made It, which is fantastic. I love what they do with the cultural aspects of it. And I love how they had an appropriation safe costume guide to it.
I saw that. Yeah.
It shows the amount of care that's put into it, and kind of the amount of care that can only happen when you have Alaska Native people behind the camera. For me, I think that's great, and I want to see more of it.
Definitely. The other thing that we're seeing, I can think of 2 other examples. There is also a show called Spirit Rangers on Netflix. And also very recently, Marvel announced an Indigenous comic book. And all of these projects that I'm mentioning have Native people behind the scenes, writing the content, creating the art. In your opinion, just end us on a good note. Why is it important to include Native people behind the scenes of these very important projects?
All good art comes from honesty. All good art comes from authenticness. If it's just something made up and not connected to anything real, the emotional stakes aren't there. But the moment it becomes authentic and true and honest, that's good art. From a artistic standpoint and from a moral standpoint, having Native Americans behind the scenes is amazing. And that's kind of what I'd like to see more of. There's a long way to go. I'm excited for the content coming. I'm hoping there's going to be a lot more of it. It's been 3 years, that's not that long, and there's all these projects that are now on air or in the pilot process or somewhere in between, and that's a huge difference. That is a seismic difference. You can't actually say like a % increase, because it went from 0 to that's you can't go like that's 400%, because it's not. It's incalculable of how much of a difference that is.
Definitely. Well, Lucas, thank you so much for joining us and breaking it down on Native American representation in television.
Thank you.
This hour of local news is made possible by contributions from the Friends of PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you. If you have comments about Arizona PBS News, please contact us at one of the addresses on your screen. Thank you.
This month in Passport, your on-demand library of the best of PBS.
I've known the family for years. I never, ever dreamt it would end like this.
Across the globe, islands are home to some of the most remarkable animals and extraordinary cultures on the planet.
I'm Scott Yu. Come with me to uncover how a country boy became the most influential composer of all time.
These and other shows are available with Passport. Become a member of this PBS station. Sign in and start streaming today.
Next time on Frankie Drake Mysteries.
Man of the hour, Philip Anderson.
The Aviator? As a wealthy philanthropist gives a speech,
man is about to soar above the clouds.
Frankie thwarts an attempt to take his child. When the team investigates the case,
the kidnapper's movement suggests that he knew the schedule.
They get no respect.
Kidnapping is serious business, best left to the police.
Frankie Drake Mysteries.
Tonight at 8 on Arizona PBS.
Tradition!
It became one of Broadway's best musicals ever.
Tradition! A Fiddler on the Roof.
From page to stage, see how Fiddler triumphed on Broadway, around the world, and through the decades. Discover Fiddler, a miracle of miracles, on Great Performances.
All new Friday night at 8 on Arizona PBS.
This is the inside story of the royals' favorite ways to travel, whether by private jet or Her Majesty's Palace on Wheels.
This is how the other half live.
Join us for the most exclusive commute in the world.
All new Sunday night at 9 on Arizona PBS. Explore new ideas and new worlds here on Arizona PBS, a community service of Arizona State University.
History is not what happened, it's who tells the story. These women had to see something that told them that it was possible.
My grandma would say, we're not feminists, we're the law.
Monday night at 11 on Arizona PBS. Support for Arizona PBS comes from viewers like you and from
Legacy Village Salt River is proud to support Arizona PBS. Opening in early fall with a new location in North Scottsdale, just off the 101 and Via de Ventura. Independent living, assisted living, and memory care. More info and tours at legacyvillagesaltriver.com or 480-527-2000.
Good evening, I'm Judy Woodruff. On the NewsHour tonight, the COVID surge continues to spike as states set new measures to tamp the spread of the virus. Then, accepting the results, more Republicans speak up to say Joe Biden won as President